For our top news story, John Kerry says that half of emissions cuts will have to come from future technology. Technology, two electric vehicle stories. One, that a German electric car maker plans a production plant in Mexico with a small car that will be less than half of a Tesla. And the second one, that a 2022 Ford can power your house for days. On our graphene story, yet another graphene advance may enable 2D transistors for tinier microchip components. On space, China lands on Mars with a major advance for its space ambitions. We'll hear a lot about this in the future. Apparently, if we're going to reach net emissions, we need to end the oil, gas, and coal funding and subsidies. In biology, interesting. Apparently, there's an app that can translate cat meows into words humans can understand. Would you get it? In humans, a person with a brain implant can now challenge Neuralink's monkey to a game of mind pong. And on our health stuff, a new drug can turn energy storing fat into energy burning fat. So does this mean goodbye to obesity? So that's what we're going to discuss today. And now, Richard, on to it. What's this in our top stories that about half of the emissions cuts will have to come from future technology?
Well, like I said in the newsletter, this is a reason why you have to keep paying attention. It's a hot science every week. John Kerry, now, who is the U.S. climate envoy, is saying 50% of the carbon reductions needed to get to net zero will come from technologies that have not yet been invented. So I don't know if that makes you more confident or less confident about the future, but and he's saying, and this is one of the things I wonder about, he says that people don't have to give up a quality of life in order to cut emissions, that Americans would not necessarily have to eat less meat because of research being done in the way that cattle are herded and fed in order to reduce methane emissions. The main thing I've heard of there is adding seaweed to the cattle food, and that does very much reduce the methane in cow farts. He says also, quote, I am told by scientists that 50% of the reductions we have to make to get to net zero are going to come from technologies that we don't yet have. That's just a reality. And he says we're determined to turn that around. We are going to be moving very rapidly to a new economy and pushing the curve on the discovery of new technologies. There are a lot of possibilities out there. So we have a future, but most of the future is not developed yet. Half of the future.
Any thoughts?
I have some thoughts.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that I was just in California and to get a vaccine, actually, and my daughter drove down to meet me in a Toyota, I think it's called a Mirai, and it is operated on a hydrogen fuel cell.
Wow.
And I think California is the only place that you can get fill-ups of whatever you call it. But I asked her how much it cost to buy the fuel, and she said she didn't know because she doesn't have to pay for it. Toyota, who she leases the car from, Toyota gave her a card that she can use. I guess it's a credit card or debit card. So anytime she buys fuel, she doesn't have to pay. And it's very interesting. I looked up the car on the internet. I think it cost about $60,000 or something like that. I don't know what she's paying to lease it, but it was a beautiful car, and it was so silent that when she started it, I thought it had stalled because I heard nothing. But it's another possibility of getting rid of emissions from gasoline. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, with having to depend upon future technologies, I'm comparing that situation to, say, when I was a kid, and
We lost you, Clive. We lost your voice.
Anyway, I have a little observation. I think what's his name was talking about. The new inventions are coming fast and furious, and many of the things that we now already take for granted, have been around only a few years. And so, if you can do the figuring, you'll know that there's definitely a downward trend. I was talking about cars. I have 3 sons, and they all drive a hybrid right now, and but it's only a little stone's throw away for an all-electric car for all of them, and so that will be enormous saving there if this would be translated into a much greater number of people using it. I mean, as far as the formula is concerned.
Can I get back to that hydrogen car?
Yes.
I think it was 10 years ago, people were talking about it could go hydrogen and it could go electric. And it seems like it's a done deal now. I'm really confused. Why hasn't that ship sailed, or Richard, or has anybody heard that hydrogen fueled cars is still a possibility?
What I've heard is that the present thinking is for big trucks that need to carry heavy loads long distances, and for long distance jets, hydrogen looks like the best solution because hydrogen has high enough energy density to be able to fuel a long flight where you're in a lot of load. What I've heard, the current thinking on cars is electric rather than hydrogen fuel cells. The other thing that's going on is there still is enormous research being done on being able to produce green hydrogen, basically hydrogen from sunlight with no pollution and things like that. So they still have to find out effective hydrogen sources. So they're actually still working on that. And I think for autos, hydrogen may have missed a market window, is my personal opinion. Right now people are investing in the future technology of electric and changing the direction. That particular direction is a big change. also with electric vehicles, the way we're doing it now, they're a lot easier to make, and that's going to get a lot more people making them and more competition and things like that. Hydrogen vehicles are not going to be that much easier to make because the power plant has got to be able to operate with high pressures and stuff like that. So hydrogen will be more restrictive in terms of the manufacturing. But the
Well,
jury's still out.
yeah, the
And-
Chinese are supposed to are planning on next year producing as many as 8 million electric vehicles.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I've not seen an article on hydrogen in gosh years, and I always go rip through my email, the New York Times headlines. I don't remember the last time I saw anything on a hydrogen fuel.
Uh-huh. And again, the reason is that hydrogen fuel has been moved into the background except for special applications.
Yeah.
California, I guess, is the only state where you can drive them because it's the only place where you can get the fuel.
Okay. And California always has been a leader in stuff like that, so it doesn't surprise me that the only place you can get them is California.
The other way is the convenience of plugging in your electric car in your garage, and next day you have a full charge.
Right.
Much simpler.
Richard, if we want to move on to technology, we have two electric vehicle stories. One, in Mexico, a production plant that's going to make a small car that'll be less than half the cost of a Tesla. And the other one, that a 2022 Ford can power your house for up to 3 days. Tell us about this.
Well, the first car, the electric vehicle, is called an e-go. And I think I have a picture of it. I don't see it here.
Same with email, right?
It was in the email, but okay, let me just, don't worry about the picture. And the, okay, just closing a window. Okay, so the Ego is from a German electric car startup, and they're gonna partner with a Mexican company that is a subsidiary of the Monterrey-based industrial company Grupo Quimco, and the company will produce electric vehicles at the lower end of the market. They're talking about a price point of $20,000 US instead of 40,000 or 50,000 for different versions of the Tesla. And this car is a tiny car, or a very small car. It's a four-seater though. It has a range of 90 miles, and they say soon they're going to increase it to 108 miles. So maybe we can get to Costco and back in it. And it's an exciting agreement. Both companies are happy to be made a partnership with each other, and the CEO of the Mexico company says, quote, "We've been developing the electromobility market within Mexico for many years. So when the idea of Ego came across, we were immediately enthusiastic." So it looks like the German company has a good partner in Mexico, and we'll see, how they're doing. I suspect it's going to still take a couple of years to get the production going, but we'll have a Mexican car, and appropriate for Mexico. It's not going to be a big expensive car. it'll be a smaller, more affordable car. Still 120,000 pesos. Is that what it would be? $20,000. That's 400,000 pesos. That's a lot of money for a Mexican, I think. Anyway, the other story about e-vehicles that I thought was worth picking up is, of course, in the last week, Ford has announced their 2022 Ford F-150 Lightning truck. And the F-150 is the best-selling truck in the world. So the best-selling truck in the world is going electric. And Ford is actually doing something interesting there with their electric truck, and that is they have an intelligent backup power system that when your car is plugged in, the power system is automatically monitoring your house power. And if your house power craps out, it'll power your house from your pickup truck. And the batteries are big enough on these trucks where they can power a typical house for 2 or 3 days. Ford says up to 10 days if you really start conserving electricity. And so this is something that none of the other EV manufacturers have done yet. And what Ford did to be able to accomplish this basically is in their charging station, then they also added an inverter to take the truck's DC power and turn it into the AC that your house needs. The Ford also did a couple of other things that are interesting. The one of the things is, the EV power systems are a lot smaller than these big gas powered engines. And for, I think, styling and image, this Ford truck still has this big hood in front of it, but the hood is actually a frunk, a front truck that has more cargo space than a Toyota Corolla. So besides having the bed in the back of the truck, we have a trunk in the front. And so we will see how this goes and if it is really popular and takes off in sales. By the way, one software addition they plan to make to the charging system is that later on, if you have your F-150 truck Lightning at home and plugged in, uh, they will have software controlling it to use it to power your house during the day when electricity rates are higher, and then recharge overnight when the power costs less. And this has the capability in some areas to significantly reduce your overall power bills. The base price for this is going to be about $40,000 or the price of 2 egos.
Any
You know,
thought?
the Rachel Maddow show spent almost 20 minutes on this particular thing last week. Did you know that? You know that she mentioned, among others, and I'm not sure if this is correct, but she said that the F-120 is, as you said, the largest selling truck, and this comes to 43 billion, would it be, dollars per year? Would you believe that? I mean,
Wow.
that's just unheard of amount of money
That's a lot of trucks.
for a truck. Yeah. Anyway, and also it would be available with a regular 2-seat or 3-seat front seat, but also with a what they call crew cab. Where you have passengers in back, and that
Uh-huh.
makes the load space little.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The reason in America that they sell so many of these pickup trucks is that A lot of men feel big and tough and strong if they're in their pickup truck. So it's not like they have it because they need it for any of their work. They have it because they
I,
think it looks cool
you
and
know,
makes them look strong.
going back to this little German car, and I'm looking at its picture, and I know that the area where we live here is not unique in Mexico, in that there are topes everywhere, and this car, if they actually are going to build it and make it the way it is, after about 1 or 2 days of use, will look considerably different.
Well, I wonder if the Mexico version has beefed up suspension.
Well, they should have to put the wheels somehow, where they stick out below. I don't know, but I mean the design the way it is not suitable for Mexico.
Yeah. I would say that where I live, 30% of trucks have been modified to look more macho.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I believe it. Yeah. All right.
Well, Richard, if we want to move on to our graphene story yet again, another advance of graphene may enable the 2D transistors to have tinier microchip components. Tell us about it.
Now, this is a system that I've been following fairly closely for a while, and the reason why is the famous Moore's Law, really since about 2000, has been bumping into physical limits because when the lines on the chips get too small, it starts acting in quantum ways rather than the conventional electronic ways. So it starts to be weird. Anyway, in 2000 we ran out of headroom. We couldn't make things any smaller. And so chips were stuck for a while, not getting smaller. Then in 2007, they figured out a multi-layer approach where you could continue to get higher circuit density just by putting more layers on. So if you couldn't put the transistors side by side, you would put them up in like an apartment building of transistors. Anyway, that's about running out of room. So we're to the place where silicon semiconductors are pretty much at the limit that they have now because of basic reasons for physics. And so the thing that has been promising is they're doing a lot of work with graphene and these two-dimensional materials to maybe be the next generation of the semiconductor. And one of the problems they had in doing this kind of miniaturization is something that is kind of technical, but it's contact resistance between the metal electrode from the graphene and the semiconductor material. And the contact resistance was such that they wouldn't work right, basically. And what they figured out how to do is to put another layer in between them. It's a layer of semi-metal made of bismuth, and this takes this problem all away and now makes that they can integrate the chip in with the substrate. So this is good, and the significance of this at one level with miniaturization is in three-dimensional semiconductors. The smallest that you can make a transistor the shortest, what they call channel length, is between 5 and 10 nanometers. And in the semiconductor that are made with this two-day way, they can make the transistors more than 10 times smaller. So this is going to be worth kind of 3 generations of Moore's laws, doubling the density every 2 years. So that's going to cover us for a while, and it really is, this particular development is the development that they needed to where they can start seriously figuring out how to make these new semiconductors with graphene instead of silicon as the substrate.
Any thoughts?
I have a question. Could you, in 2 cents, define what a semiconductor does, like for idiots?
Semiconductor can either conduct or not conduct.
But in the realm of computers, is there some way you could make it something I understand, like what it really does?
Semiconductor is a technology that is used to make electronic circuits. And electronic circuits are composed of devices and connections. And so with a semiconductor, there are many things that you can make. If you were making them out of separate components, they would be enormous. But if you put all of these components together in this tiny microscopic thing, you can make it where it is much smaller.
But I think it's useful to think of them as electrical switches. And usually, a transistor typically has 3 connections. So 2 of them will be the straight through connection, and the third one will be an electrical connection that either closes the switch or doesn't close the switch. And as Richard says, miniaturizing these things, they can put millions of them on a chip and have millions of these switches that are either open or closed.
And the thing about the switches that are open or closed, you've heard about binary electronics. Binary is either 1 or a 0. In this case, open and closed gives you the things you need to make a 1 or a 0. So binary is the kind of logic system that semiconductors use to be able to make computers and stuff like that. They've been using binary logic since the old days when there were magnetic cores and things like this in the 1940s. So
it makes things go faster. I mean, practically speaking, instead of my computer and all computers basically can go much faster.
It makes them go faster and use less energy.
Okay.
And far less space. And the thing that's interesting is, as Richard says, this binary system uses what's called Boolean algebra. And our normal number system is a base 10 system, but the Boolean is a base 2 system. And that's the binary part of it, just yes or no, open or closed. And they can do all the arithmetic you can do with the base 10 system with the base 2 system.
You just have longer numbers. Now, one interesting thing about this binary mathematics is the first place I heard it was developed was in India about 1,000 years ago, and they didn't have computers then, and I have no idea why these Indian mathematicians were developing binary mathematics, except as just an intellectual problem.
Just as a little comment, Richard, 50 years ago, I was working on core memories, which they make them smaller and smaller. So they stayed much longer than they had predicted. And of course, we're taken over by semiconductor memories.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Right,
Richard, if we want to move on to astronomy, tell us about China being on Mars and what are its space ambitions?
Well, in the last week or so, China landed its first spacecraft on Mars. And it now China is one of three countries that actually has landed on Mars. The U.S. has had like 7 Mars landings since 1976. The Soviet Union landed on Mars actually first in 1971, but the mission failed and they haven't done it since then. And so this extends the uh, Chinese ambitions in space. And, you know, in the last couple of weeks, Mars launched a mission that is the first part of their permanent space station that they hope to have operating next year. And they also, in the last year, have brought back rocks from the moon. So they're doing a lot. And, you know, part of the thing about the landing on Mars that makes it more difficult is on Mars, to land there, you have to use heat shields for protection from the heat. And then you have to use both retro rockets and parachutes to slow it down enough to be able to land. On the moon, all you need is retro rockets. And on the Earth, you have a heat shield and you have a parachute, but no retro rockets. And the only place where all three are needed, at least so far, is on Mars. So it's a more complicated mission. The rover that's landing there, that's going to be, they say, deployed for about 3 months. So I guess it doesn't power itself well from the sun. I don't know why it's only 3 months. It's about the size of a small car. And one of the interesting features on it that none of the U.S. missions have is it has ground penetrating radar, so you can get an idea of what's in the surface area below the surface. And since they're looking for water and formations that might hold water, this will be real useful. China has said that it wants to land people on the moon and build a scientific base there. And then China is also developing, they say, a space plane. You should think of the obsolete shuttles that the U.S. had, and it sounded to me like basically they ripped off an old shuttle design. But China is fully in the game, I think, with this Mars mission.
Any thoughts?
Well, does anyone know what purpose they have? Are they trying? Is it just for political posturing, or do they see some economic advantage, or why are they doing this?
Political posturing and put themselves into position as a player, a major player in space is what I think. The only significant scientific instrument is the ground penetrating radar.
Well, and also China's talking about their own space station, and they clearly see.
Right, they've got the first part of that up.
Yeah.
It's going to be a small space station about the size of the Russian Mir. So it's about 5 times smaller than the ISS. But it puts them with a space station, and that's one piece of the infrastructure that they feel like they have to be a modern player.
I think also the military aspect is probably very important for them. Don't you think, Richard?
No shit. Excuse me, but yes. Yes, I think so.
I'm gonna see if there's one to go big a pot. Please, please.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Was there
Yeah,
another comment?
I was going to say, does this sort of political posturing on the part of China, is anybody losing sleep over that? I know I'm not. I mean, I just couldn't care less. I mean, it's interesting, but is anybody worried about this from a military political standpoint? Or am
Well,
am I missing something?
from a military standpoint, again, once you have these positions in space, it means that it's easy for you to attack any place on the Earth or other things in space. So the military significance is actually pretty significant.
Okay.
And what it turns out China is not talking about is the military significance. I wonder why.
That's a difficult guess.
Richard, if we want to move on to environment, and if we want net emissions, apparently we have to stop all this subsidization of oil, gas, and coal funding for new stuff. Tell us about that.
Now, this is the International Energy Association, the IEA, which is still a pretty prestigious body, and they're saying investors should not fund new oil, gas, and coal supply projects around the world if we're going to reach net zero emissions by mid-centuries. This is the starkest warning that anybody has given yet to curb future fossil fuels. And this is a massive blow to the fossil fuel industry. And again, right now, if you look, the energy major company spending plan still tilt heavily towards hydrocarbons and oil productions, and Norway plans to do another round of licensing offshore drilling facilities. So this funding of the exploration is still going on, but the IEA says the path to net zero is narrow but still achievable. But we do not need any more investment in new oil, gas, and coal projects. To which I say, yay, it's about time somebody is saying this.
Any thoughts?
Well, one thing is the IEA is funded by the petroleum industry.
Oh God, I didn't realize. Oh no!
But what this could logically mean is they're trying to protect the available market for the existing players,
right. Okay.
and not invite further discoveries and further exploration. And the real punishment will be to the contractors and the industry that depends on exploration and new projects, as opposed to the operation of existing projects.
Right. Now, the IEA is saying we are going to, of course, we're going to have to continue to fund the existing projects.
Yeah,
So I
and
think that fits with what you're saying.
And they expect that by 2050, we'll still be producing oil, but it'll be at 25 million barrels a day instead of the current 100 million barrels a day.
Okay, so a pretty big reduction, but still not to zero. And I guess the 25 million a day becomes much more for industrial use than energy and transportation.
Yeah, and the other thing is the IEA is discouraging future coal projects and that helps their petroleum
Interesting.
sponsors. And so what that would do is shift us more to natural gas-fired
Right.
power generation in the short term.
Okay, let's have more fracking. Okay, I appreciate your perspective on the IEA. I didn't understand where they got their money from, and that explains why some of their recommendations are a little more conservative.
Well, and also you had an article last week about the IEA talking about the shortage of materials necessary to achieve the alternative energy objectives that
Right.
the
So,
zero emissions.
and but I didn't put on our list to talk about this week somebody else saying the IEA is full of baloney when they talked about those materials. So I appreciate what you said there. It let me understand the perspective that the IEA is talking about, and they're trying to discourage in ways the reliance on renewables so they
Well,
can sell more oil.
they're trying to bring some realism to the idea that all these alternatives are the panacea that we need.
And if the realism happens to discourage it, they don't mind.
You might say that.
Okay, I was just trying to find a way to thread the needle here.
So, Richard, if we want to move on to biology, what's this about being able to translate cat meows into words we can understand? Would you buy an app to do that?
Well, personally, since I'm not a cat owner, I don't think this is as big a deal for me personally. It's just interesting in terms of technology and their use of technology. So this ex-Amazon engineer has created an app, and the name of the app is Meow Talk. So you can go on the internet and see if you can download Meow Talk. I'm not sure if it's available yet, but they say this application is a creation that promises to translate your cat's vocalization into something that humans can understand. The next thing they say is actually, I think, interesting. They say these cat vocalizations are not a language. Cats don't communicate with each other. I can't believe that, actually. But they say cats never meow at each other out in nature. So this is just something that we get by our relationship with a cat, I guess. And they say cats have one of 9 different intents, and each message has its own kind of meow. Like one of the meows is I'm hungry. Another meow is I'm in pain. Maybe another meow is I want to go outside. And then because individual cats are still different, they have an option where what they call the cat parents can have the option to fine tune and train this application from their cat's unique vocalization. And these 9 sounds represent 9 intents and cat moods and states of mind, but each cat has its own unique vocalization and vocabulary. Meow Talk is still under development. And one of the things I still have to wonder is, do cats in different places speak a different cat language, or is this cat language we're hearing about, is this instinctive? Is it going to be different for a Siamese cat in Siam, Thailand, as it is for the Siamese cat in Texas.
Any thoughts?
Well, our cat would like an app that works the opposite way.
And I don't believe that only one of those 9 attitudes is I want more food.
You think that's would be several of them?
Yeah,
Maybe-
and if
maybe
you die, I will happily eat you for food.
Our cat doesn't need to be translated. He makes things pretty clear what he wants.
And probably one of those commands would be leave me alone, because that's how cats are.
Yeah, who here would buy a meow talk?
Not me.
No?
Well, and people may be familiar with the term caterwauling, and you wonder if that's part of the vocabulary this guy's working with.
What does that mean? I forget. Is that complaining?
It's the noise female cats make when the tomcats are,
And then he,
Really.
yeah.
yeah.
So you're
Well, I'm
saying, go ahead.
I just spent 5 hours in the car with my cat, and I'll tell you, I think there was a lot of cursing going on,
From you or the
and
cat?
a lot of "Are we there yet?"
Yes.
Yes.
There you go.
Ooh,
And I don't
When
think
you-
cats do talk to each other very much, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
in my
I
experience,
don't know.
than the
When
neighbor.
you lie awake at night and listening to the cats meowing outside, I think they're communicating with each other.
oh, that's true. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think so too. That's why I didn't believe when he says cats don't communicate with each other.
Mm.
I think they do, but I don't know about this app. I'm not. It could be a scam or something.
Well,
But
would
I
you
did
take it
look
if you
on
could
the-
download it for free?
Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe, yeah, just for fun. But I was just reading today a serious article about how they have studied for decades elephants and say that they definitely communicate
Mhm.
in different ways
Uh-huh.
to each other. And I think they're working on understanding it, understanding some of the sounds that they make. But they also said they make sounds that humans can't even hear. That it was extremely interesting.
Well, if not too many people want to buy this app for cat meow, I wonder how many of them would buy a brain implant that would make them be able to play mind pong with a monkey. What do you think about
Now, here, this is the first case that I've heard about this, and a man with a brain implant has challenged Neuralink's monkey that has a brain implant to a game of mind pong. The monkey can already play pong. The human is just learning how to play it. He's a guy who was paralyzed in a car accident, and in March of 2020, he got this brain implant that is called a Utah Array, and has then been able to use it to do things like browse the internet and even draw pictures using a digital painting app. But now he is preparing for the big match, and like any champion, Copeland, who's the man's name, is taking the challenge seriously and is prepping himself for the showdown. This would be the first time a monkey and a human have engaged in this kind of brain battle. And it looks like probably that this match will be televised to millions via YouTube or something like that. And it has Copeland a little worried. He says, I could get my ass beat, but yeah, I would play. And so this just opens up a new range of the use of these brain computer interfaces. And I think they're doing this cross species brain competition is a great way to publish this. Would you play Pong with a chimpanzee?
Any thoughts?
Well, unless the monkey's name is Ping, and we got a ping pong match.
Uh-huh.
I would like to link up last week's story about animals laughing with this one and predict. I will go on record as predicting if the monkey wins, you will see it laughing.
Okay. I think
Well, Richard, if we want to move on to our last story about obesity, apparently we can turn energy.
Is everything working now?
We can get things that can get rid of fat into energy burning fat. What's this about?
this is exciting in a lot of ways, and certainly it's going to be a wonderful business opportunity for someone because people will pay big money for this kind of stuff. What it's based on is that in response to starvation, a nerve signaling molecule called neuropeptide Y, otherwise known as NPY, boosts food intake and reduces energy output. And a new study in mice suggests that a drug that blocks a receptor for NPY increases heat generation in fat tissues. And to test it, they fed animals a high fat diet. Some of them got the drug, some of them didn't. And the ones that got the drug reduce their weight gain by about 40%. That's weight gain because they had a high fat diet that would increase their weight. And about this drug is unlike other diet drugs, it doesn't work by making a change in the brain. It doesn't appear to cross the blood-brain barrier, and so it's unlikely to have a negative effect on mood like a lot of the existing diet drugs have. And the team focused on this nerve signaling molecule, NPY, and NPY then conserves energy by reducing heat generation in a type of fat tissue called brown adipose tissue, brown fat. And this reaction with NPY is also one of the things that deteriorates as you age, and it looks like it's one of the reasons why it makes weight loss for seniors a lot harder than it is for other people. And here they fed mice a high fat diet with or without this drug. The name for the drug they have is still the technical name. It's BIBO 3304. And they found that mice that were given this drug did gain a lot less weight, and they understood that this was from a decrease in heat generation in the animal's brown fat. And they have learned that the Y1 receptor acts as a brake for heat generation in the body. So here they tested it on rats, next will be humans, and then it will be a new product. This drug, though, also has other positive effects. It looks like it improves the glucose metabolism, so it's going to make an improvement for diabetics. It widens blood vessels, vasodilation, which lowers blood pressure, and then it also helps maintain bone density, preventing osteoporosis. So, besides being a diet drug, then it helps diabetics, high blood pressure people, and people who are losing bone mass because you get older. Now, one of the things I find interesting about this drug is several years ago, I'm a kind of person who all my life my body has generated a lot of heat, and so my wife liked me in the winter because I was a great heat source in bed, and that heat my body generates has just gone away in the last few years, and now I understand probably it's a part of this metabolic change in my own body, and I'm trying to find out things that I can do that can counteract this NPY effect that I have as I have age. I'll tell you later if I was able to find anything.
Any thoughts?
I have a couple. If it's as good for you as you say, Richard, what about us thin people? Does that give us a license then to eat all we want and take this drug?
Maybe. And then if you're thin people with high blood pressure, you can eat all you want and still not affect your blood pressure either.
So give me some of this drug. Where do we get it?
I don't know. I think they have to put it in production first.
Oh, okay.
And I know that as a marketing type, Bebo 3304 does not sing as a marketing name, so I'm going to have to find a clever name that's going to make people want to buy it. What should you call it, Loretta?
Eat all you want.
Okay, eat all you want.
That's correct.
I have a related story because I remember reading this several months ago in the New York Times. Some of you out there might want to read about this, but there's a drug, semaglutide. It's already used in type 2 diabetes. It basically inhibits it tells your brain you're full, and studies show it's highly effective and really fairly significant weight loss. SEMAGLUTIDE. It's from February this year. So if you Google semaglutide, you can read about it. But it's a very impressive drug for significant weight loss. It might be more natural. And unfortunately, I think you had to get an IV injection once a week. But I'd like to think that you might be able to, like with diabetes, teach someone to just give themselves that at home, and it wouldn't be that hard to do.
Yeah, as long as it doesn't require a big needle, then self-injection is easy.
Right, exactly.
Hey, Cliff, can I have that spelling again?
Yeah, SEMAGLUTIDE.
I got it. Okay.
This was a pretty big story, I thought, when it came out in February.
Yes, and I saw that story as well, and probably included it in one of the detailed listings.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Richard, if that concludes our session today, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody for participating. And we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, Richard. Thanks, Fred.
All right. See you next week, folks.
Hey,
Thanks.
take care.
Thanks, Richard.
All right. Good to be with you.
Same here.
I'm gonna get the cat app.
Okay.